The auctioneer's gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the Manhattan penthouse, and Roman Reeves felt nothing as his staff began cataloging every piece of furniture, every painting, every remnant of the empire he'd spent 15 years building. The pharmaceutical company that bore his family name had just been sold for $8 billion, and all he wanted was silence. "Mr. Reeves, the movers need to know which items you're keeping," his assistant said, hovering near his elbow with a tablet. "Nothing," Roman said. "Donate it all." She blinked. "Sir, some of these pieces are worth. I don't care." He turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the city sprawling beneath him like a living organism that never stopped moving, never stopped demanding. "I'm done with all of it." 3 days later, Roman stood in front of a small house on Maple Street in Meadowbrook, Oregon, population 3,012. The real estate agent had promised him privacy and peace in this coastal town, and the modest 2-bedroom craftsman with its peeling blue paint and overgrown garden looked like exactly what he needed. No one here knew his name. No one cared about quarterly earnings or stock prices. He could breathe. He moved in with nothing but clothes, a laptop, and a single leather bag. The house came furnished with simple pieces that creaked and smelled faintly of lavender. Perfect. He spent the first evening sitting on the back porch, listening to the quiet rustle of pine trees and the distant sound of waves. This was what he'd been searching for. Then, at 11:30 at night, music exploded from the house next door. Not just music. Bass-heavy, window rattling, absolutely unmissable music that seemed to make the walls of his bedroom vibrate. Roman lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if it was a party. Surely it would end soon. Surely no one played music this loud on a Tuesday night in a residential neighborhood. At 1 in the morning, the music was still going. He grabbed a pillow and pressed it over his head. At 2, he gave up on sleep and made coffee. At 3, the music finally stopped, replaced by the sound of laughter and a car door slamming. Roman watched through his kitchen window as a woman stumbled up the path to the house next door, her arms full of what looked like painting supplies. She wore overalls covered in rainbow splatters, her dark hair piled on top of her head in a messy knot that defied gravity. As he watched, she dropped half her supplies, swore loudly enough for him to hear through the glass, and spent the next 5 minutes gathering brushes and tubes of paint from her lawn. The next night, it happened again, and the night after that. On the 4th day, Roman decided to introduce himself. He knocked on her door at 10 in the morning, figuring she had to be awake by now. He waited, knocked again. Finally, the door swung open, and he found himself face to face with the messiest human being he'd ever encountered. She wore a paint-stained t-shirt that had probably been white once. Her hair was even more chaotic in daylight, and she had a smudge of blue paint across her left cheek. Her eyes were an unusual shade of amber, and they regarded him with zero recognition or interest. "Yeah," she said, "I'm Roman. I moved in next door." He gestured toward his house. "I wanted to introduce myself. Cool, I'm Luna Harper." She started to close the door. "Wait," he said, putting his hand out. "I also wanted to talk about the noise." Her eyebrows rose. "What noise?" "The music, every night. It's extremely loud." Luna stared at him for a moment, then laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh man, you're one of those people. Look, I'm an artist. I work at night. Music helps me focus. This is when I'm most productive. At midnight, sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning. Inspiration doesn't follow a schedule." She shrugged. "Sorry about your luck, neighbor. Could you at least turn it down?" "I could," she said slowly, "but I won't. This is my house. I've lived here for 3 years. You just got here. Maybe you should have checked out the neighborhood before moving in." Before he could respond, she closed the door in his face. Roman stood on her porch, stunned. In his previous life, people didn't close doors on him. They certainly didn't laugh at his requests. He was Roman Reeves, for God's sake. He'd built a company from the ground up, navigated hostile takeovers, faced down boardrooms full of sharks. And this paint-covered woman had just dismissed him like he was nothing. He walked back to his house, unsure whether to be angry or impressed. That night, the music started at 11. He tried earplugs. They didn't help. He tried playing white noise through headphones. The bass still penetrated. At 1 in the morning, he got up, pulled on jeans and a t-shirt and marched over to her house. He pounded on the door. The music didn't stop. He pounded harder. Finally, Luna opened the door, this time wearing what looked like an old band shirt and leggings covered in paint. "You again. It's 1 in the morning. I'm aware of what time it is." She leaned against the doorframe. "Look, I get that you're not used to this, but I'm not changing my entire life because you moved in next door. This is a small town. People have lives. We're not all corporate robots who go to bed at 9. I'm not asking you to change your entire life. I'm asking you to be considerate. And I'm asking you to accept that the world doesn't revolve around your sleep schedule." She softened slightly. "Buy better earplugs. Get a white noise machine. I don't know what to tell you, Roman. This is who I am." She closed the door again, and the music continued. Roman went home and didn't sleep. In the morning, gritty-eyed and exhausted, he decided to learn more about his infuriating neighbor. He walked into town, found the local coffee shop, and ordered an Americano from a teenager with bright pink hair. New in town. She asked, steaming milk for the drink behind him. "Just moved to Maple Street." "Oh, cool, that's where Luna lives. She's awesome." Roman grabbed his coffee. "What does she do exactly?" "She's an artist. Paints these incredible murals and commissions. She did the whole side of the library last year. You should check it out." The girl smiled. "She's kind of a local treasure, weird but in the best way." He walked to the library, a small brick building near the center of town. The entire west wall was covered in a mural of the ocean, waves crashing against rocks, seabirds wheeling overhead. The colors so vivid they seemed to move in the sunlight. In the corner, in small letters, it read, "Luna Harper." Roman stood there for a long time, coffee growing cold in his hand. It was beautiful. Undeniably, breathtakingly beautiful. That didn't change the fact that he needed to sleep. Over the next week, they fell into an uncomfortable rhythm. Luna's music would start late at night. Roman would try to ignore it. Sometimes he'd knock on her door. Sometimes she'd answer, sometimes she wouldn't. When she did, their conversations were brief and combative. "This is harassment," she said one night when he showed up at her door for the 3rd time that week. "You're literally preventing me from sleeping in my own home. So move." "I just got here." "Then adapt." She crossed her arms. "Look, I'm sorry you're having a hard time, but this is my life. I'm not going to apologize for it." He noticed details about her despite his frustration. The way paint seemed to be permanently embedded under her fingernails. How she always had coffee stains on whatever she was wearing. The fact that her yard was overflowing with wildflowers that she apparently never tended, but that grew in beautiful, chaotic abundance anyway. She was a mess. She was inconsiderate. She was everything he'd come here to escape. And yet, he couldn't stop thinking about her. 2 weeks into his stay in Meadowbrook, Roman was walking through the small downtown area when he saw Luna at the farmer's market. She was examining tomatoes with an intensity that seemed excessive for produce. She wore cut-off shorts and a tank top, her hair pulled back with what looked like a paintbrush. He told himself to walk past, to ignore her, but his feet carried him over to her stall. "Those are good," he said, pointing to the heirloom tomatoes she was studying. She glanced up, surprised. "Roman." "What are you doing here?" grocery shopping. I do eat, believe it or not. Luna smiled just a little. I figured you lived on air and disapproval. Despite himself, he laughed. That's fair, I haven't exactly been welcoming. You've been kind of a pain in the ass, actually. But she said it without heat. These really good, she held up a tomato. Yeah, the vendor here grows them on the coast. The salt air does something to them. How do you know that? I asked. Roman said. I've been coming here every week. They stood there for a moment, the morning sun warm on their shoulders, the market bustling around them. Luna bought the tomatoes, and Roman found himself walking alongside her as she moved from stall to stall, picking up fresh bread, honey, flowers that she said she needed for a still life she was working on. You paint at night, he said. What do you do during the day? Sleep, mostly. Run errands. Sometimes I teach art classes at the community center. She paused at a jewelry stall, examining a pair of hammered silver earrings. I know my schedule is weird. I've always been this way. Even as a kid, I'd stay up all night drawing. Drove my parents crazy. Where are they now? Mom's in Seattle. Dad passed away 5 years ago. She said it matter-of-factly, but he saw the flash of pain in her eyes. Heart attack. He was only 53. I'm sorry, Luna shrugged. Life happens. He would have loved this town. He grew up here, actually. That's why I moved back after he died. Felt like the right place to be. Roman didn't know what to say to that. In his world, people moved for opportunities, for careers, for strategic advantages. The idea of moving somewhere because it felt right was foreign to him. They walked in silence for a bit, and then Luna asked, "What brought you to Meadowbrook?" He hesitated. "I needed a change. The city was too much." "What did you do there?" "Pharmaceuticals." Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. "I sold my company and decided to try something different." "Like what?" "I have no idea," Roman admitted. "That's part of the experiment." Luna laughed, genuine and bright. "That's either really brave or really stupid. Probably both." They reached the end of the market, and Luna shifted her bags to one arm. "Listen, I know I've been difficult about the noise thing, but I really can't change when I work. It's when my brain comes alive. Everything else feels forced." "I get that," Roman said, surprising himself. "I used to work 18-hour days. My staff thought I was insane, but that's when I did my best work. So we're both insane, just on different schedules. Apparently." Luna studied him for a moment, her amber eyes thoughtful. "Tell you what, I'm making pasta tonight. Come over for dinner. Maybe if we're not yelling at each other through a door, we can figure out some kind of compromise." Roman knew he should say no. He'd come here for peace, for solitude, for distance from people and complications. But he found himself nodding. "Okay, what time? 6 work for you?" "I'll be there." That evening, Roman stood on Luna's porch with a bottle of wine, feeling more nervous than he had in years. The door was already open, just the screen door between him and the chaos inside. He could see Luna in the kitchen, her hair down around her shoulders, moving between the stove and counter with the same intensity she brought to examining tomatoes. He knocked on the screen door frame. "Come in," she called. "Door's open." He stepped inside and was immediately overwhelmed. The house was a riot of color and creativity. Paintings covered every wall, some finished, some clearly in progress. Art supplies were scattered across every surface. Books were stacked in precarious towers. A hammock hung in one corner of the living room. The whole place smelled like paint and garlic and something floral he couldn't identify. "Sorry about the mess," Luna said, not sounding sorry at all. "I'm not great with organization. I can see that." Roman set the wine on the counter, which was the only clear space he could find. "This place is a lot. That's one way to put it," she grinned. "My mom calls it aggressively bohemian. I call it home." She handed him a glass of wine and gestured for him to sit at the small dining table, which was covered in a paint-splattered cloth but set with actual plates and silverware. The pasta was simple but delicious. Fresh tomatoes and basil and garlic, the kind of meal that tasted like summer. They ate and talked, and Roman found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months. Luna asked questions about his life, but she didn't pry when he kept his answers vague. She told him about her art, about the mural she was working on for a restaurant in the next town over, about how she'd never left Oregon except for a brief stint in art school in California. Hated it, she said. Too many people trying to be something they weren't. Too much posturing. I just wanted to paint. So you came back here. Best decision I ever made. Sure, I don't make much money, but I'm happy. That counts for something. Roman thought about his penthouse in Manhattan, the designer furniture, the art he'd bought because advisors told him it was a good investment. He'd had everything money could buy, and he'd been miserable. It counts for everything, he said quietly. After dinner, Luna showed him her studio, a converted garage behind the house. It was chaos incarnate, canvases everywhere, paint tubes scattered like confetti, brushes soaking in jars of murky water. But in the center of it all was a massive painting of a woman's face, half-finished, the colors bold and emotional and utterly captivating. This is what I'm working on now, Luna said. It's a commission, but the client basically gave me free rein. She just said she wanted something that made her feel alive. It's incredible. Thanks. Luna wiped her hands on her jeans, leaving new paint streaks. This is why I work at night. When it's quiet, when the rest of the world is asleep, I can fall into the work. Everything else disappears. It's just me and the canvas and the music. Roman understood that. He'd felt that way about his work once, before it became about profits and shareholders and endless meetings. I miss that feeling, he said. What feeling? Being lost in something, caring about it so much that nothing else matters. Luna looked at him, really looked at him, and he felt seen in a way that was both uncomfortable and exhilarating. You'll find it again, she said. You just have to figure out what you're looking for. That night, when the music started at 11:30, Roman lay in bed and didn't get angry. He listened to the bass, to the melody seeping through the walls, and imagined Luna in her studio, paintbrush in hand, creating something beautiful. He still didn't sleep well, but it bothered him less. Over the following weeks, Roman and Luna fell into an unlikely friendship. They'd run into each other at the market, grab coffee at the local shop, take walks along the beach that was a 10-minute drive from town. She introduced him to her friends, a collection of locals who were warm and welcoming once they realized he wasn't just some city transplant looking to change everything about their town. Roman started to understand Meadowbrook's rhythm, the way everyone knew everyone else. How the hardware store owner would give you advice on your garden whether you asked for it or not. How the local diner made the best pie on the coast, and everyone had an opinion on which flavor was superior. He also started to see Luna differently. The things that had annoyed him at first became endearing. Her messiness was part of her charm. Her loud music was the soundtrack to her passion. Her complete disregard for conventional schedules was freedom he'd never allowed himself, and she was beautiful. He'd noticed that from the start, but now he couldn't stop noticing. The way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. How her whole face lit up when she talked about a new project. The paint stains that were as much a part of her as her amber eyes. One evening, about a month after he'd moved to Meadowbrook, Roman was sitting on his back porch when Luna appeared at the fence separating their yards. "Hey," she called. "Want to see something cool?" He followed her to the beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple that seemed impossible. They walked along the shore in silence, and then Luna stopped. "Look," she said, pointing. The tide pools were full of starfish, anemones, tiny crabs scuttling between the rocks. The water reflected the sunset, and everything seemed to glow. "I come here when I'm stuck," Luna said. "When the painting isn't working and I need to remember why I do this. Nature is the best artist. We're all just trying to capture a fraction of what already exists." Roman watched her instead of the tide pools. She was barefoot, her jeans rolled up, completely at ease in a way he'd never been anywhere. "Do you ever get scared?" he asked. "Of what?" "That you're not doing enough, that you should want more." Luna considered this. "Sometimes. When I see my friends from art school posting about gallery shows in New York or Paris, I wonder if I'm wasting my potential hiding out here. But then I paint something that makes someone cry, or I see my mural on the library and watch kids stop to look at it, and I remember that success isn't just about recognition. It's about impact, even if it's small." "That's not small," Roman said. "That's everything." They stayed at the beach until the stars came out. Luna pointed out constellations, making up stories about them that were definitely not astronomically accurate but were entertaining anyway. Roman found himself laughing more than he had in years. When they finally walked back to their houses, Luna paused at her door. "Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for inviting me. You're not so bad, Roman, for a corporate type who complains about noise. You're not so bad either, for a chaos artist who doesn't respect sleep schedules." She laughed and went inside, and Roman went to bed with a smile on his face. But things shifted the next week when a black sedan pulled up in front of Roman's house. He was working in the garden, trying to tame the overgrowth, when his former CFO stepped out of the car. "Marcus," Roman said, standing up and brushing dirt from his jeans. "What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing." Marcus looked around at the small house, the modest street with barely concealed disdain. "This is where you disappeared to." "I didn't disappear. I retired." "You're 37 years old. You don't retire." Marcus handed him a folder. "The acquisition is falling apart. The buyers found some irregularities in the patent filings. They're threatening to back out unless you come back and smooth things over." Roman's stomach sank. "That's not my problem anymore. It is if you want to keep your $8 billion. Marcus's expression was serious. "Look, I know you want it out, but you have obligations. You built this company. You can't just walk away and pretend it never existed." Roman looked at the folder, then at his house, then over at Luna's place where he could see her in the yard, painting at an easel set up in the sunshine. She waved when she saw him looking. "I need to think about it," he told Marcus. "Don't think too long. The deal closes in 2 weeks." Marcus got back in his car and drove away, leaving Roman standing in his garden with dirt under his nails and a decision to make. That night, he couldn't focus on anything. The music from Luna's house started at its usual time, but instead of trying to sleep, he went over and knocked on her door. She answered with a paintbrush between her teeth, wearing an old shirt and shorts, completely in her element. She took the brush out of her mouth. "Hey, you okay? Can we talk?" Luna let him in, and they sat in her chaotic living room while he explained everything: who he was, what he'd built, the sale, the escape to Meadowbrook, the fact that his past was trying to pull him back. When he finished, Luna was quiet for a long moment. "So you're not just some guy who worked in pharmaceuticals. You're Roman Reeves, as in Reeves Pharmaceuticals. The company that developed that new cancer treatment. You've heard of it." "Roman, everyone's heard of it. That treatment saved thousands of lives." She stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because here I'm just Roman. I'm the guy who moved in next door and complained about your music. I'm not a billionaire or a CEO or someone people want things from. I'm just me." Luna absorbed this. "Are you going back?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. I built that company from nothing. It was my life for 15 years. But another part of me remembers why I left. The stress, the constant pressure, the feeling that I was drowning even while I was succeeding. He looked at her. I came here to find peace, and I did, but maybe I was naive to think I could just walk away. Do you want to go back? That was the question, wasn't it? Roman thought about his old life, the power suits and boardrooms and endless negotiations. Then he thought about the farmer's market, the beach at sunset, sitting in Luna's chaotic house eating pasta and talking about art. No, he said. I really don't. Then don't. Luna said it like it was simple. You already sold the company. Whatever problems they're having, they're not yours to fix. You did your part. You saved lives. Now it's time to save your own. It's not that easy. If the deal falls apart, there could be lawsuits, complications. There are always complications. Luna moved closer to him on the couch. But you can't live your life based on other people's problems. Trust me, I know. When my dad died, everyone had opinions about what I should do. Go back to school, move to a bigger city, make real money. But I knew what I needed. I needed to come here and paint and figure out my own life. It wasn't what anyone else wanted for me, but it was right. Roman reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that felt natural even though they'd never touched like this before. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too busy complaining about my music to notice. They sat there, close together, the moment stretching between them. Roman could hear the painting in her studio, probably half-finished and spectacular. He could smell paint and that floral scent that permeated her house. He could see the way the light caught her eyes, turning them gold. "Luna," he said. "Yeah, I think I'm falling for you." She smiled, slow and beautiful. "That's convenient. Because I've been falling for you since you showed up at my door the first time, all indignant and sleep-deprived." "Really? You closed the door in my face. You were kind of adorable, all proper and demanding in your expensive jeans." She touched his face, her fingers paint-stained and gentle. "You're different than I thought you'd be. When I heard a guy from the city bought the place next door, I figured you'd be insufferable. But you're not. You're real." Roman kissed her. It was slow and sweet and felt like coming home to a place he'd never been. Luna kissed him back, her hands in his hair, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Roman felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. They pulled apart, and Luna was grinning. "So, what now?" "Now I make a phone call and tell Marcus to handle the acquisition himself. And then I figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Might I suggest complaining about your neighbor's music? You're really good at that." Roman laughed and kissed her again. The next morning he called Marcus and told him he wasn't coming back. There was yelling, threats of legal action, dire predictions about his reputation. Roman listened to all of it and then said, "I don't care. Handle it without me." He hung up and felt lighter than he had in years. Luna invited him to help her with a mural she'd been commissioned to paint on the side of the community center. Roman had zero artistic talent, but he could follow instructions, and Luna was patient with him as he filled in sections of sky while she worked on the more complex elements. They painted in the sunshine, talking about everything and nothing. Luna told him about her childhood in Meadowbrook, her father's love for the ocean, her mother's practical concern about her career choice. Roman talked about building his company, the early days when it was just him and two other scientists in a rented lab, the first time they'd successfully synthesized a compound that would eventually save lives. "You miss it?" Luna asked, adding detail to a seabird's wing. "The science part, I mean." "Sometimes," Roman admitted. "I miss the discovery, the moment when something works and you realize you've created something that didn't exist before. But I don't miss the business side, the fundraising and marketing and fighting with insurance companies. So do the part you like. What do you mean? Luna stepped back from the mural, assessing her work. You're a billionaire, Roman. You don't need to work for money, so work for passion. Set up a lab, research whatever you want. No investors, no board meetings, just pure science. It was so obvious he couldn't believe he hadn't thought of it himself. I could do that. You absolutely could. She handed him a different brush. Here, this section needs a darker blue. As they painted, Roman's mind spun with possibilities. A private lab where he could pursue the research that interested him without commercial pressure. Maybe something focused on rare diseases that big pharmaceutical companies ignored because they weren't profitable enough. He could partner with universities, offer grants to young scientists, be a mentor instead of a CEO. You're smiling, Luna observed. You just gave me an idea that might change my life. Good. You can thank me by buying dinner. They went to the local diner that night, squeezing into a booth that had probably been there since the 1950s. The waitress, an older woman named Dolores, took one look at them and grinned. About time, she said. We've been watching you two dance around each other for weeks. Luna laughed. Nothing gets past you, Dolores. Honey, this is Meadowbrook. We knew he was smitten the second time he came into town asking about you at the coffee shop. Roman felt his face heat. I wasn't asking about her. You asked if the artist who painted the library mural lived on Maple Street. That's asking about her. Dolores winked. Now, what can I get you? They ordered burgers and the famous pie, and Roman found himself surrounded by curious locals who all wanted to meet the mysterious guy who'd moved in next to Luna. He'd expected to feel exposed, uncomfortable, but instead it felt welcoming. These people cared about Luna, and by extension they were willing to care about him. Your town is growing on me, Roman told Luna as they walked home along the quiet streets. It's not my town, it's our town. She took his hand, their fingers interlacing naturally. If you're staying, I'm staying. They ended up at Roman's house, and he realized this was the first time Luna had been inside. She looked around at the sparse furniture, the empty walls, the complete lack of personality. Roman, this is depressing. I like minimalism. This isn't minimalism, this is a sad hotel room. She walked through the space, gesturing as she talked. You need art on the walls, books on the shelves, something that makes this place feel like someone actually lives here. I've only been here 6 weeks, and you've lived like a monk the entire time. Luna turned to face him. Let me help. I know you're not an artist, but everyone has things they love. Photos, books, collections. Where's your stuff? Roman realized he didn't have stuff. He'd left everything behind in Manhattan, reducing his life to the bare essentials. But Luna was right. This wasn't minimalism, it was emptiness. I'll figure it out, he promised. We'll figure it out, Luna corrected. She pulled him down onto the couch, curling into his side. This is nice, though. Good couch. They sat there as the light faded outside, talking about their days, their dreams, the future. When Luna finally went home around midnight to start her painting session, Roman didn't mind the music that drifted through the walls. It was the sound of Luna doing what she loved, and that made it beautiful. Over the next few weeks, Roman began building his new life. He reached out to some former colleagues from his research days, proposed his idea for a private lab focused on rare disease research. The response was enthusiastic. He purchased a small building on the outskirts of Meadowbrook and began converting it into a state-of-the-art facility. Luna painted a mural on one wall of the lab, a swirling representation of DNA helixes and molecular structures that somehow also looked like waves and stars. It was scientific and artistic at once, bridging both their worlds. This is amazing, Roman said, watching her put the finishing touches on a particularly complex section. "Science is beautiful," Luna said. "I don't understand most of it, but I understand that you're creating something that matters. That deserves to be honored." She climbed down from the ladder and surveyed her work, paint splattered and satisfied. Roman wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into him. "I love you," he said. The words came easily, naturally, as if they'd been waiting to be spoken. Luna turned in his arms, her amber eyes bright. "I love you too, even though you still occasionally look pained when my music gets really loud. It's growing on me, liar." But she kissed him, and they stood there in the half-finished lab, surrounded by the mural and equipment and the future Roman was building. They fell into a rhythm over the summer. Roman worked on setting up his lab, hiring researchers, establishing partnerships with medical schools. Luna painted and taught her classes and filled both their houses with her creative chaos. They had dinner together most nights, alternating between her place and his, though Roman's house slowly became more lived in, as Luna insisted on adding touches of personality. She hung paintings on his walls, filled his shelves with books from the local used bookstore, convinced him to get a cat from the animal shelter. The cat, a massive orange tabby they named Newton, became Roman's constant companion in the house and seemed to judge him whenever he worked too late. "Newton thinks you should take a break," Luna said one evening, appearing at Roman's home office door with the cat in her arms. "Newton is a cat. He doesn't think anything except feed me and pet me. Untrue. Newton is very wise." She set the cat down and came to massage Roman's shoulders. "You've been working for 6 hours straight. Come have dinner with me." Roman saved his work and let her pull him away from the computer. They ate on Luna's back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. These were the moments Roman treasured most. No pressure, no expectations, just Luna and her terrible cooking that he'd learned to appreciate and the quiet contentment of being with someone who understood him. "My mom wants to meet you," Luna said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Yeah, she's coming to visit next month. Fair warning, she's going to interrogate you about your intentions." "My intentions are to continue being hopelessly in love with her daughter." Luna grinned. "Good answer. But seriously, she's protective. After my dad died, it's been just the two of us. She'll want to make sure you're not going to hurt me." "I would never hurt you. I know that. She doesn't. Yet." Luna reached across the table and took his hand. "She's going to be impressed, though. You're a billionaire scientist who moved to a small town and fell for a messy artist." "That's like something out of one of her romance novels." Roman laughed. "Is that what this is? A romance novel, the best kind?" Luna's mother, Margaret Harper, arrived in September when the weather was turning cool and the leaves were beginning to change. She was a tall woman with Luna's eyes and a sharp, assessing gaze that immediately made Roman nervous. She hugged Luna, then turned to Roman and extended her hand. "Mr. Reeves, I've heard a lot about you. Please call me Roman, and I hope you've heard good things. Mostly." Margaret smiled, but it was the smile of someone reserving judgment. "Luna tells me you're starting a research lab here." "Yes, madam. We're focusing on rare diseases that don't get enough attention from larger pharmaceutical companies." "And you sold your previous company for how much?" "Mom," Luna said warningly. "I'm just asking. I want to understand what kind of man my daughter is involved with." Roman respected her directness. $8 billion. I spent 15 years building Reeves Pharmaceuticals from the ground up. We developed several drugs that have helped a lot of people, but the company became more about profits than patients, so I sold it and came here to start over." Margaret studied him for a long moment. "Why Meadowbrook?" "I wanted peace, and I found it." He looked at Luna. "I found more than that, actually." Over the next few days, Margaret thawed. Roman took her and Luna to dinner, showed her the lab, introduced her to some of the locals who'd become his friends. He saw Margaret watching him and Luna together, saw the moment when her protective suspicion shifted to approval. On her last night in town, Margaret pulled Roman aside while Luna was in the kitchen making coffee. "She's happy," Margaret said. "I haven't seen her this happy since before her father died. You did that. She did that herself. I'm just lucky enough to be part of it. Luna told me you could live anywhere, do anything. You chose here, you chose her." "Every time," Roman said. "I choose her every time." Margaret patted his arm. "Good. Because if you hurt her, I'll drive back here and make your life very difficult." "I wouldn't expect anything less." That night, after Margaret had gone to bed in Luna's guest room, Roman and Luna sat on his back porch under a blanket, watching the stars. "She likes you," Luna said. "She threatened me." "That means she likes you." Luna snuggled closer. "I told her I'm in love with you. She said she could tell." "How?" "The way we look at each other. The way we move around each other like we've been doing this for years instead of months." Luna tilted her head up to look at him. "It does feel like years, though, doesn't it? In the best way." They sat in comfortable silence, and Roman thought about how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been exhausted and empty, going through the motions of a life that didn't fit anymore. Now he was here with Luna, building something new and meaningful. He was happier than he'd ever been. The lab officially opened in October with a small ceremony attended by local officials, the mayor, and about half the town. Luna had insisted on decorating, which meant the sterile research facility was festooned with colorful banners and flowers. It should have looked ridiculous, but somehow it worked. Roman gave a speech about the importance of research without commercial pressure, about giving back to the scientific community, about honoring the people who suffered from diseases that didn't have profitable treatments. When he finished, the applause was genuine and warm. Luna stood beside him, and he couldn't help but think that none of this would have happened without her. She'd pushed him to pursue his passion. She'd made him see that retirement at 37 wasn't giving up, it was choosing a different path. After the ceremony, they went back to Luna's house, exhausted but happy. Luna immediately changed into paint-covered clothes and headed to her studio. "I'm inspired," she announced. "That speech was incredible. I need to paint." Roman followed her to the studio and watched as she attacked a fresh canvas with the same intensity she brought to everything. Music blasted from the speakers, and she moved to the rhythm, brush flying across the surface. He'd seen her paint dozens of times now, but it never got old. She was magnetic when she worked, completely alive. Around 2 in the morning, Luna stepped back from the canvas, breathing hard. The painting showed a man in a lab coat staring at a swirl of colors that could have been chemicals or could have been dreams. It was abstract but somehow captured the essence of scientific discovery. "It's you," Luna said. "Well, the idea of you, the wonder you must have felt when you were doing the work you loved." Roman stared at it, speechless. "Luna, this is incredible. It's yours. For the lab. Every great space needs art." He pulled her close, not caring about the paint that transferred to his shirt. "I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." As fall turned to winter, Roman's lab began producing results. They'd partnered with a hospital in Portland to study a rare genetic disorder, and preliminary data was promising. Roman found himself excited about work again, energized by the research in a way he hadn't been in years. Luna's career was flourishing too. Her work had caught the attention of a gallery in Seattle, and she had her first solo show scheduled for February. She was nervous and excited in equal measure, painting constantly to have enough pieces for the exhibition. What if no one comes? She asked one night, lying on Roman's couch with her feet in his lap. "Everyone will come. Your work is beautiful. You're biased. I'm right." He squeezed her foot. "And I'll be there, front row, intimidating anyone who doesn't appreciate your genius. My billionaire boyfriend intimidating art critics. That's an image." Boyfriend seems like an inadequate word at this point. Luna propped herself up on her elbows. What would be a better word? Roman had been thinking about this for weeks. He'd looked at rings, imagined proposing, but the timing never felt right. Now, in the middle of a random Tuesday night with Luna in sweatpants and one of his T-shirts, felt perfect. "Partner," he said. "Wife, eventually, if you'd want that." Luna sat up fully, her eyes wide. "Roman, are you proposing?" "Not officially. I don't have a ring yet and I'd like to do it properly, but I'm letting you know that I'm going to propose, soon, so you can think about your answer." That's the most awkward pre-proposal I've ever heard. "Is that a yes?" Luna launched herself at him, kissing him hard. "That's a yes, you ridiculous man. Of course it's a yes." They tumbled together on the couch, laughing and kissing, and Newton jumped down with an indignant meow at being disturbed. Later they moved to Roman's bedroom and he made love to Luna slowly, memorizing every detail. The way she said his name, the paint still under her fingernails, the absolute trust in her eyes. Afterward, lying tangled together, Luna traced patterns on his chest. "When did you know?" "Know what?" "That you loved me, that you wanted this." Roman thought back over the past months. "Probably that first night you invited me over for dinner, when you showed me your studio and talked about being lost in your work. I recognized that feeling, that passion. And I thought, this is someone worth building a life with." "I knew earlier," Luna admitted. "That morning at the farmer's market. You were so earnest about those tomatoes, and I realized you were actually trying to understand this place, to be part of it. You weren't just hiding out here. You were choosing it, choosing you, choosing me." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and Roman dreamed of the future. A wedding, maybe on the beach. A house they'd buy together, bigger than either of their current places, with room for Luna's studio and his home office. Children, eventually, running through the rooms and making messes that Luna would encourage and Roman would try futilely to organize. He woke before Luna, which was unusual. She was curled against him, her dark hair spread across the pillow, looking peaceful and beautiful. Roman slipped out of bed carefully and went to make coffee. His phone buzzed with an email from Marcus. Despite everything, his former CFO occasionally checked in, usually with news about the company or industry gossip. This email was different. "Roman, I thought you should know. The cancer treatment you developed just received expanded approval from the FDA. It's now available for 2 additional cancer types. Early trials are showing incredible results. Thousands more people will have access to treatment because of the work you did. I know you're done with this world, but you should be proud. You changed lives. Marcus." Roman read the email 3 times, emotion welling in his chest. He'd left pharmaceutical work because it had stopped being about patients and started being about money. But this was why he'd started. This was the impact he'd wanted to make. Luna appeared in the doorway, wearing his shirt and nothing else, sleep-tousled and perfect. "You okay?" He showed her the email. She read it, then wrapped her arms around him. "Roman, that's amazing. I didn't do it for recognition. I know. But you should still let yourself feel proud. You saved lives. That matters." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other as the morning light grew stronger. Roman thought about the path that had led him here, the stress and exhaustion that had driven him away from his company, the desperate need for peace that had brought him to Meadowbrook, the loud, messy neighbor who'd become the love of his life. "I need to buy a ring," he said. Luna pulled back to look at him. "Now, soon, I want to do this right." She kissed him softly. "You're already doing it right." Roman drove to Portland the next week and spent an afternoon at jewelry stores, looking for something that would suit Luna. Not too flashy, nothing traditional. He finally found a ring at a small artisan jeweler, a gold band with a raw emerald that caught the light and threw off sparks of color. It was unusual and beautiful, just like Luna. The jeweler, a woman with silver hair and knowing eyes, smiled when he chose it. "This is for someone special, the most special. How long have you been together?" 8 months, but it feels like always. That's how you know it's right. She boxed the ring carefully. Good luck. Roman kept the ring hidden in his sock drawer, waiting for the perfect moment. He considered elaborate plans, romantic gestures, but everything felt too staged. Luna deserved something real. The moment came 2 weeks later on a random Sunday. They'd spent the day hiking in the state park near Meadowbrook, following trails through old-growth forest to a waterfall that Luna wanted to paint. It was cold, the Pacific Northwest winter settling in, but the hike warmed them up. They reached the waterfall, and Luna immediately pulled out her sketchbook, capturing the way the water cascaded over rocks, the mist rising, the filtered sunlight creating rainbows. Roman watched her work, completely absorbed, and thought, "This is it." When she finished her sketch, Roman took her hand. "Luna, yeah, I know I told you I'd propose properly with planning and romance, but standing here watching you do what you love, this feels like the right moment." He pulled the ring from his jacket pocket. "Will you marry me?" Luna stared at the ring, then at him, her eyes filling with tears. "You brought the ring on a hike. I've been carrying it everywhere, waiting for the right time. That's so impractical." She was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, yes, of course I'll marry you." Roman slipped the ring on her finger, and Luna threw her arms around him. They kissed while the waterfall roared behind them, and Roman felt complete in a way he never had before. This was home. Not a place, but a person. Luna was his home. They hiked back down the mountain engaged, stopping frequently to kiss and admire the ring on Luna's finger. By the time they reached Meadowbrook, the sun was setting, and they went straight to the diner to celebrate. Dolores took one look at Luna's hand and let out a whoop. "Finally. I told Harold you were going to propose soon. He said I was jumping to conclusions." Within minutes, half the town seemed to know. People came by their booth to congratulate them, to hug Luna, to shake Roman's hand. It was overwhelming and wonderful, this community that had accepted him and now celebrated with them. That night, they went back to Luna's house, and she immediately called her mother. Roman could hear Margaret's delighted screaming through the phone. They talked for an hour while Roman made dinner, and when Luna finally hung up, she was beaming. "She's thrilled. She's already planning the wedding in her head. Should I be worried? Probably." Luna came into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "But she'll listen to what we want. Mostly." They talked about the wedding while they ate. Something small, they decided. On the beach, maybe in late spring when the weather was better. Just close friends and family. Luna wanted wildflowers and music and dancing under the stars. Roman wanted whatever made her happy. "We should live together," Luna said. "I know we're basically living together already, but we should make it official. Your place or mine, neither. We should find somewhere new, somewhere that's ours." They started house hunting the next week, driving around Meadowbrook and the surrounding areas, looking for the right place. Luna wanted natural light for her studio. Roman wanted space for a home office and library. They both wanted a yard, maybe room for a garden. They found it on the edge of town, a craftsman house that needed work but had good bones. It sat on 2 acres with views of the ocean in the distance. The yard was overgrown, the porch sagged, and the interior needed updating, but Roman and Luna both fell in love immediately. "We could fix it up together," Luna said, walking through the empty rooms. Make it exactly what we want. Roman imagined it. Luna's art on the walls, his books on shelves they'd build together, a studio in the big converted barn out back, a vegetable garden, maybe chickens. A life they'd create from scratch, just like they'd created this relationship. Let's do it. They bought the house in December and spent the winter renovating. Roman learned he was terrible at drywall but decent at painting. Luna had strong opinions about every color choice and usually won their debates. They worked on the house together every weekend, slowly transforming it from fixer-upper to home. Luna's art show in Seattle was scheduled for late February, right in the middle of renovations. Roman insisted they take a break from the house to focus on her work. The week before the show, Luna was a nervous wreck, second-guessing every painting, convinced no one would come. "Stop spiraling," Roman said, pulling her away from the canvas she was trying to fix for the third time. "Your work is incredible. The gallery wouldn't have booked you if they didn't believe in you. But what if, no what ifs, you're brilliant and tomorrow night everyone in Seattle is going to see it?" The gallery show was everything Luna had dreamed of and more. The space was packed with people, and her paintings looked stunning under the professional lighting. Roman stayed by her side, watching people react to her work with awe and appreciation. Several pieces sold within the first hour. A woman approached them, elegant and sophisticated, studying the waterfall painting that Luna had sketched before Roman proposed. "This is extraordinary," she said. "I'm curator at the Portland Museum of Art. I'd love to talk to you about a possible acquisition for our permanent collection." Luna's hand tightened on Roman's arm. "Seriously, very seriously. Your use of color and emotion is exceptional. This piece in particular tells a story." The curator handed Luna her card. "Call me next week. We should discuss this further." After she walked away, Luna turned to Roman with tears in her eyes. "Did that just happen?" "It did, I told you. The Portland Museum wants my work." "A museum, Roman?" He kissed her, not caring that they were in the middle of the gallery surrounded by people. "This is just the beginning." They stayed in Seattle for the weekend, celebrating Luna's success. Roman took her to nice restaurants, they explored the city, and Luna glowed with pride and happiness. On Sunday, driving back to Meadowbrook, she was quiet. "What are you thinking about?" Roman asked. "How much has changed in a year? Last February I was painting alone in my studio, wondering if I was wasting my life. Now I have a show, a museum interested in my work, and I'm engaged to a man I love more than anything." She reached over and took his hand. "You changed everything for me." "You changed everything for me too. I was running away when I came to Meadowbrook. You taught me that sometimes you have to stop running and build something instead." They got home to find the house in chaos. Newton had apparently decided to redecorate and had knocked over several paint cans in Luna's temporary studio space. There was orange paint across the hardwood floors, up the walls, and on the cat himself. "Newton." Luna rushed to grab paper towels while the cat sat in the middle of the mess, looking unrepentant. Roman surveyed the damage and started laughing. "This is our life now. Chaos and paint and cats that hate us. I love our life." They spent the next hour cleaning up Newton and the floors, and by the time they finished, they were both covered in paint and exhausted. But they were laughing, working together, and Roman couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Spring came to Meadowbrook with wildflowers and warm breezes. The house renovations were nearly complete, and they set a wedding date for May. Margaret came back to help with planning, and despite Luna's concerns, she was remarkably reasonable about everything. "I just want you happy," Margaret said. "Everything else is details." They planned a simple ceremony on the beach where Roman and Luna had watched the tide pools that first evening. About 50 people would attend, a mix of family, friends from town, and a few of Roman's colleagues from his pharmaceutical days. Luna designed her own dress, a flowing white gown with subtle paint splatters she'd added deliberately. Roman wore a simple suit, no tie, barefoot in the sand. The ceremony was perfect. The sun shone, the ocean provided the soundtrack, and when the officiant pronounced them married, everyone cheered. They danced on the beach as the sun set, and Roman held Luna close, thinking about how impossible this all would have seemed a year ago. "I love you, Mrs. Reeves," he whispered in her ear. "I love you too, though I'm keeping Harper professionally. Luna Harper has a certain artistic ring to it. Whatever you want, as long as you're mine." They honeymooned in a cabin on the Oregon coast, spending 2 weeks painting, hiking, and being completely disconnected from the world. Roman had never been good at relaxing, but with Luna, it came naturally. They'd spend mornings in bed, afternoons exploring the coastline, evenings cooking together and talking about their dreams. "I want kids someday," Luna said one night, lying on the couch with her head in Roman's lap. "Not yet, but eventually." "How many?" "2, maybe 3. "I don't want them to be lonely." She looked up at him. "What about you?" "I never thought about kids until I met you, but yeah, I want that. A house full of noise and chaos and your art supplies everywhere. And your scientific journals. And Newton destroying everything." Luna laughed. "We're going to be terrible parents. The best terrible parents." When they returned to Meadowbrook, the house was finished. They moved in properly, merging their lives completely. Luna's studio in the barn was everything she'd dreamed of, with huge windows and space for multiple projects. Roman's home office had built-in bookshelves and a view of the garden they were starting together. Roman's lab was thriving. The rare disease research had led to a promising treatment that was entering clinical trials. He'd hired 6 researchers, all brilliant scientists who shared his passion for helping people over making profits. He went to work excited every day, energized by the meaningful work. Luna continued to paint, her career growing steadily. The Portland Museum had acquired 2 of her pieces, and she had shows lined up in galleries across the Pacific Northwest. But she never lost her connection to Meadowbrook, still teaching classes at the community center, still painting murals around town. 1 year after their wedding, on a warm May evening, they had a dinner party at their house. Friends from town, researchers from the lab, Margaret visiting from Seattle. The house was full of laughter and conversation, and Roman stood on the porch watching through the window. Luna was inside, animated and joyful, telling some story that had everyone laughing. She caught his eye and smiled, that smile that still made his heart race. She excused herself and came out to join him. "Why are you lurking out here?" "Just appreciating the moment. This house, these people, you." "I'm happy, Luna, really happy." She wrapped her arms around him. "Me too, though I have some news that might make you even happier." "Yeah, I'm pregnant." Roman pulled back to look at her, his heart suddenly racing. "Are you serious?" "Found out this morning." "I was going to wait to tell you, make it special, but I can't keep secrets from you." She was smiling, nervous and excited. "We're having a baby, Roman." He picked her up and spun her around, not caring that their guests could probably see them through the window. "We're having a baby," he repeated, the words sinking in. "Luna, we're having a baby." They went back inside and Luna announced the news to everyone. More cheers, more celebration, Margaret crying happy tears. Roman kept his hand on Luna's stomach, even though there was nothing to feel yet, marveling at the fact that they'd created a life together. That night, after everyone had left and they were cleaning up, Luna said, "Are you scared? Terrified?" "Good, me too, but we'll figure it out together. Like we figure out everything." 7 months later, on a cold December morning, their daughter was born. Rosalie Margaret Reeves came into the world screaming, with Luna's dark hair and Roman's blue eyes. Roman held her for the first time and felt his entire world shift. "She's perfect," he said, tears running down his face. "She's so small," Luna said from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. "Roman, we made a person. A perfect person." They brought Rosalie home to the house that had once seemed too big and now felt exactly right. Roman took paternity leave from the lab, and Luna put her painting on hold, and they dove into parenthood together. It was exhausting and overwhelming, and the best thing either of them had ever done. Rosalie was 6 months old when Luna sold a painting for $50,000, her highest price yet. She was 9 months old when Roman's lab's treatment received FDA approval for clinical trials. They were building their careers while building their family, and somehow it all worked. "I never would have guessed this would be my life," Roman said one evening. They were sitting on the porch, watching Rosalie crawl around on a blanket, grabbing at grass and flowers. What suburban domesticity with a wife and kid, happiness. Real, uncomplicated happiness. He pulled Luna close. "When I moved to Meadowbrook, I thought I was looking for peace and quiet. Turns out what I needed was you. Loud, messy, absolutely everything you." Luna kissed him. "And you're stuck with me now. The loud music, the paint everywhere, all of it. I wouldn't have it any other way." Rosalie squealed, having discovered a butterfly on the grass, and they both laughed. Roman thought about the path that had brought him here, the choices and chances, and the woman next door who'd changed his entire life. He'd been a billionaire looking for escape, and he'd found something infinitely more valuable. He'd found home. 3 years later they had a son, Lucas, who inherited Luna's creativity and Roman's analytical mind. The house filled with toys and laughter, art supplies and science experiments. Newton tolerated the chaos with feline dignity. Now old and distinguished, Roman published a book about patient-focused pharmaceutical research that became required reading in medical schools. Luna had a retrospective at a major gallery in Portland. They built successful careers while raising their children in the small town they both loved. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the waterfall where Roman had proposed. The kids stayed with Margaret for the weekend, and Luna and Roman hiked the familiar trail hand in hand. "Do you ever regret it?" Luna asked. "Leaving your old life, everything you built?" "Never. Not for a second." Roman stopped walking and turned to face her. "That life was successful, but it was empty. This life with you, with our kids, with meaningful work that doesn't consume me, this is everything. You gave me that. We gave each other that." They reached the waterfall, and it looked exactly the same as it had a decade ago. The water cascaded over rocks, mist rising, sunlight creating rainbows, but everything else had changed. They'd changed, grown, built a life together that neither of them could have imagined. "I love you," Roman said. "Today, tomorrow, forever." "Forever," Luna agreed. "Me and you and our chaos. Our beautiful chaos." They kissed while the waterfall roared behind them, and Roman felt the same certainty he'd felt the day he'd moved to Meadowbrook. This was where he was meant to be. This loud, messy, absolutely perfect life was his home, and Luna was his everything. From that first night when her music had shattered his peace, she'd been changing his life, showing him what really mattered. Not money or success or corporate empires, but love and family, and choosing to build something meaningful every single day. They hiked back down the mountain as the sun set, talking about their kids, their work, their dreams for the future. And when they got home, they'd go back to their beautifully imperfect life together, exactly where they belonged.